Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Margaret. Mayors, very nice to see you both. Mayor Adler, was good to see you at City Lab, which we helped organize in Paris. Fancy spot, and we would have loved to have you, Mayor. I already know you're quite a character. So let me start out, Steve, and ask you, what percentage of renewables is Austin on now? I know that you've got a target of 55% by 2020, 75% by 2027. What's the state of play today?
We're just under 40% right now, so we'll double where we are.
Mayor Ross, where are you?
Well, in 2016, we were 100%. And
he's got a little coin that he just told me this. This is the Georgetown City coin.
That's
it says
calling
100. It says 100 on it. So you're
that was
100.
on 2016. At 2017, it'll be about 90%. And in 2018, when our solar farm gets built out in Fort Stockton, we'll be back to 100%.
So, Steve, I just want to ask you, what are the scaling issues? Because the reason I ask this, just to start with, is we have a city of 65,000. We have Austin, greater Austin area, which is the fastest growing metropolitan area in the United States today, and you're at 40%. So there's a difference here. You've got one mayor here who's got it nailed, and you're working hard on it. But what are the reasons for that gap that you see? What's on your dashboard of what you have to solve to get to where Georgetown is?
You know, that really did feel like a setup question. The way you started that off. But I'm used to following my colleague around, and that's okay. You know, it's several different things. Right now, you can't have an entire system that's renewable because without dispatchability, you're going to have certain periods of time where you are not producing power when the sun's not shining and the wind's not blowing. So you need a system that has some dispatchable power until we can figure out how to do storage well. But within the city of Austin, we already have significant capital assets. You know, we have a coal plant that we'll start phasing out in 2022. But right now it's part of our generation. So the cost of producing energy in that plant doesn't include any of the capital expenses. It's just the incremental cost associated with operating that plant. So the economics associated with an existing capital facility very different than when you're looking at what do I build in the future in terms of incurring additional capital expenses or entering into a power purchase agreement like the city of Georgetown does, which includes some capital expenses associated with that. So it's a combination of having an existing capital base that we're going to have to work our way through. It is also putting ourselves in the position where we're self-reliant to be able to have some dispatchability for when there's peak times when the cost of power goes up 9,000%.
Dale, before you get to you, let me ask you another question, Mayor. You're on a list. I'm not sure exactly. It's a Politico magazine list, actually. You're co-winner of Rookie of the Year as mayor, and in the Living Cities Index, you're listed as among 25 disruptive leaders, along with Mark Zuckerberg. My colleague Ta-Nehisi Coates made the list, actor Jesse Williams. So what makes you? I just listened to your answer, and I'm trying to. What makes you, among your peers, considered to be such a disruptive mayor?
Well, I think it's one, you know, having that honor made my job real for my daughters. Any list I could be on anywhere near Mark Zuckerberg, he actually deserves to be on that list. But you know, the numbers we have reached as a large city that has significant capital assets is pretty forward-looking. And we've been able to achieve things that other cities our size are very uncommon. Last year, within the state of Texas, we more than doubled the solar purchases portfolio statewide in the city. So while we're not at 100% right now, some of the tools that Georgetown uses are not really available to us. But we're doing we're leading the curve with respect to the work that we are doing. The city is going to become net effective with carbon footprint 2020 from city operations. By 2050, as a community, we'll have a zero carbon footprint. We're doing incredible things now with respect to resource recovery, moving composting citywide, bringing in commercial users. If I could right now, I would put that on the back of my coin because Georgetown can't do that yet.
You put
but we're anxious.
Yeah.
We're anxious for them to get there too.
Right.
But I think that that recognition
Yeah.
out of the group also looked at the things we were doing with affordable housing
Right.
and preserving workforce housing in the city. Dealing with affordability with innovative ways, and a lot of idea cities have the challenges that we have with gentrification and losing people and losing communities. So I think we were recognized also for housing conservancy programs that are introducing new models that no one has used thus far.
Mayor, I already know you're a disruptive mayor. You're a part of the GOP, and you've come up with 100% clean city, I guess. What do your colleagues, particularly your political allies, think of you being celebrated as much as you are by Al Gore?
Well, they think we're going to go on summer vacation.
You guys may not know he's going to appear as a very big, high-profile hero in the next Al Gore movie, right?
It's already out.
Oh, it's out?
It's
Yeah, I have.
out.
There,
Yeah,
I'm behind.
it's
And how's that gone for you?
It's going very well. You know, we just got back from Canada and talking about green energy up there, and the Canadians love it. And I will say this about Mayor Adler, though.
Yeah.
What you're looking at is a bold visionary leader, and the challenges that he faces are a lot more steep than what we had to do in Georgetown. But Austin will get there. And it's not just Georgetown, it's Central Texas. You know, Fort Hood, the largest military base in the country, which is about 60 miles from here, they have their own solar farm right there.
Right.
And so you can look what's happening.
But there are lots of towns of 60. There are many more towns of 65,000 in the United States than there are towns of 2 million, 3 million. I don't know what the population of Austin is, but what you've done is fairly extraordinary. I mean, my family's from Bartlesville, Oklahoma, which is probably 60,000. I've got to tell you, we're nowhere near a renewable level that.
Yeah, the politics on this doesn't work too well if you're a Republican because folks think that this is this liberal, crazy, progressive idea. But what it is, it just makes good sense business-wise. And let me tell you what, if you win the economic argument, you're going to win the environmental argument.
So give us the business argument.
The business argument, I'll give you, for example, back in 2008, we were charging 11.4 cents per kilowatt hour to our ratepayers.
Right.
Today, we're charging 9.2. That's 9 years later. But more importantly, we had a two-pronged strategy. We signed a 25 and 20-year contract that is fixed rate pricing, okay? So we're paying the same in year one as we will be in year 20 and 25. So that takes out the price volatility in the market. The second thing is we wanted to mitigate or minimize regulatory and governmental risk. The knuckleheads in D.C., you know, I don't see what they can regulate with renewable energy. The windmills don't produce any pollution in the air. The same thing with solar and the same thing with hydro. So what is there to regulate? And so that met both of our strategies. In fact, when President Trump made the huge mistake about unilaterally pulling the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord, it didn't do anything to our strategy because at the end of the day, the cities and the counties are the ones that are producing power for the citizens they were elected to serve.
So let me ask both of you, Steve, be interested in your comments on this, because you were with Mike Bloomberg in Paris when he said, you know what, we don't need the federal government when it comes to the Paris Climate Accord. Cities and states can do it on their own. Mayor Ross just said the same thing. Do you feel that largely the United States pulling out of the Paris Accord is an irrelevancy?
It would be a lot easier to have the federal government with us than to not have the federal government with us. But even when the Paris Accords were signed, half of the goals that were set were going to be achieved at the local and municipal level. You know, cities like Austin, fortunate to have their own power companies, get to make their own generation decisions. But beyond that, cities make procurement decisions. They make fleet decisions in terms of the vehicles that they have. They make their decisions with respect to composting and resource recovery in their cities. So there's the effect of the federal government pulling back from the Paris Accord just means that cities need to redouble their efforts. And we need to do more. We need to fill in the gap. It would be easier and better with the federal government engaged. But more and more, in more areas, I think the people are looking to the cities to perform. And cities are working more and more with each other. The alliances between cities, the cooperation between cities is growing. And I think that's an incredibly welcome change.
So let's imagine this for a minute. Dale, I'd be particularly interested in how you started and how when you looked at the community and you had this, you looked at the business bottom line, I get that, but to talk to others out there, there are a lot of people interested in cities, a lot of people watching this stream right now. Who are the right allies to get on your side? You've talked about allies between cities, but within a city, what are the right kinds of allies and partners that you need to get secured in place before you actually begin moving the system coherently in this direction?
I think you have to get the support of the citizens to put you in office and get their buy-in to it, because I don't think anybody would argue it's better to have less costly power than more, especially if you're the one that's writing the check for it. The other thing, too, I think from the Republican side, you just you have to get over that there's going to be any negative consequences. I just ran for re-election in the spring, and I got 72% of the vote. So it's more than just Republicans voting for me, it's Democrats. And, you know, at the end of the day, the clean energy and sustainable energy is not a Democrat or Republican issue. It's an American issue. We all should be working together. And I agree with Mayor Adler, the federal government should be helping us instead of hindering us. And if you look at the Paris Climate Accord, it's interesting that it doesn't really, the withdrawal really doesn't take place until Trump's been in office for 4 years, one. And two, do we really want to be a leader of this world and stand strong with Syria on climate change? Really? I don't think so. I mean, I think as the United States, we have a higher calling, and we're better than that.
Are there any cities out there of your size or even larger that are now, you think, following? Are they calling, let's call Dale and you know, get his playbook on how to do this? Are you more than just a boutique example, or are people following in your path?
Well, no, I mean, you look at the people that came before us too. I mean, Burlington, Vermont, as far as we can tell, was the first one in the city. And you look in Colorado, because, you know, you have that Montana wind tunnel that comes all the way from Montana all the way down to Corpus. And so it's getting to the price point right now where it's cheaper to have renewable energy, wind and solar, than it is fossil fuel. Now, the critics say that, you know, natural gas is an all-time low. Okay, I'll make this deal with you. You can buy a gallon of gasoline if you sign up with me for $2.15 for the next 25 years. Do you take the deal?
I know the answer to this, so yeah, most people would, but I won't.
You won't. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're an outlier.
Right.
Okay, so we'll have to work on you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, that's interesting, kind of look at the as you look in this city, you know, Steve, as I was talking to an Uber driver, I actually got dropped off in the wrong part of town, but he was telling me how much he loves Austin. And I saw a lot of Austin. I'm about like 3/4 of a mile, and I'm miles away, so I saw lots of the city today. But he said, you know, what's really impressive is how what used to be urban blight is being transformed. And so one part of the discussion today is really how do you get into the business of green? What are the drivers of green? But another part of this is how do you change a city, its vector, and actually give its citizens a sense that, you know, it's become a more rich fabric of things. And I was very impressed by this Uber driver, who's an immigrant, by the way, who was sharing his perspectives on how great Austin was becoming. What is on your dashboard of priorities when you're kind of looking broadly? I know sustainability is there, but what are the other pieces?
Well, you know, in a city like Austin, that's fast growing, we have a lot of challenges that fast growing cities have. So we're constantly looking right now at first the economic factors, and Austin's doing incredibly well. We're the fastest growing metropolitan area, Central Texas, in the country this past year. In fact, we have been for the last 6 years and are projected to be through the year 2040. So we hit those marks, but coming with that are affordability issues. We have gentrification issues and displacement issues that a lot of the fast-growing idea cities are having. So we're watching that. We have mobility challenges in the city. So a lot of the factors that we look at on the dashboard we're doing really well on, but we don't have the full participation of the entire community in what is going so well. So the equity-related issues are the ones that we're really focused on as a city. You know, but Austin has always been a city that has had as one of its core values sustainability. This is a city that was really ready to lead the charge for renewability, even when it used to cost more. Because it was the right thing to do, and you needed to have folks that were participating in that market so that the prices could come down and the technologies could be developed for everyone. So it's always been part of who we are in this city. And at this point, where we are with respect to sustainability happens not in spite of the desire to have a good economy, but part and parcel of us having a good economy. You know, it's part of, like the mayor said, those choices now don't cost extra. But in a very real sense, they help brand who we are. And there are companies and people moving to Central Texas because of who we are in Central Texas. The people that they want to have work for them want to live here. So it's something that is fundamental to our economic stability.
Dale, how do you do what you do? I mean, I'm listening to both of you, and you're both so reasonable. It's frustrating. But politically, I mean, just to be honest, the reason that these kinds of forums are being done around the country is that there's some perceived risk. Like if gravity was just taking there, if the price was just taking there, it's easy, right? We just all go that way, and you know, and the politics of the situation don't matter. I'm really intrigued on how each of you speak to and reach out to doubters, people who doubt the science, who doubt climate change, who, for perhaps the politics of the moment, believe that anything along the lines of what you just talked about, Mayor, wind and solar, is you know, Al Gore leftism. And I'm just interested in how you really reach people and help generate kind of a broader, you know, shared commitment to these things, because it's not happening everywhere. It's happened with you guys, but it's not happening everywhere.
Well, I think, first of all, you have to be a bold visionary leader, and second of all, you have to do the right thing. And if you do the right thing, it generally works out at the end of the day. But the way I explained it to those in the Tea Party was, you know, this is an economic deal, and it works economically. But more importantly, if you don't want to re-elect me, for every vote that I lose to the Tea Party, I pick 2 Democrats up. So the math works in elections as well. I think there's a lot of Republicans out there that are afraid that if they take on renewable energy and any kind of environmental issues, they're going to be branded as out of the mainstream in the Republican Party. And I think right now I'm one of 6 Republican mayors that have signed up with the Sierra Club on climate change, and 6 out of 400 is not very many. But there's nothing, you can look at me and nothing bad happens to you. You know, you get reelected and you get to be in 3 movies and you get to hang out with
Travel around the world.
You travel around the world.
Steve, how many movies have you been in?
None. No. But I get to sit on the same bench with.
But I tell you what, you know, I get to hang out with Mayor Adler. That makes it all worthwhile. You know?
But
Mayor, I will give
let
you
me
an
ask you
example.
how you reach communities, because you've got to reach across lines as well.
And we do. And not everything that we do with respect to sustainability costs less than what the alternative costs. So there are deliberate choices that have to be made. You know, one of the reasons, you know, as I said last year, as we moved to double the entire solar portfolio in the state, the way that we went about doing that was different than we had done it in the past. We have our executive director of Austin Energy here. And it was interesting. The way this council and community used to approach making those kind of renewability purchases was to set a goal, you know, 100 megawatts, 200 megawatts, 700 megawatts. And we would we would then go and get that number of megawatts that we had set as our goal. But it's real important in order to be able to survive in this state, with this state legislature, that we're not just acting alone, that we have our customer base with us, certainly our large industrial users with us, because if we're doing something that is counter to their plans, we're going to have a rocky time at the state legislature preserving the ability to be able to make these choices.
Right.
So we approached it differently this time.
Yeah.
We sat down with the industrial users and we said, what is the risk tolerance for pricing over a period of time that we can live with? Because those industrial users are also part of our community. They're
right.
proud to be part of this community. They recognize what that branding does for them. So we decided on what was the risk profile we could live with, and then we backed into then what was the extent of the solar purchases that we could make, and it turned out to be a number that was 425 megawatts of solar power.
Let me just comment on something the mayor said, because it's very similar. Tonight we have a council meeting in Georgetown, and we have some tax credit affordable housing projects. Last year we were awarded 3, which, as far as I understand, is a record in the state. We also started our own citywide bus system last year. And it's a city of 65,000. But I do agree with Mayor Adler. You know, sometimes you're not going to get cost savings, but it's a quality of life issue. And what I can do with some of my liberal and progressive friends, we can come to the right answer for different reasons.
Right.
And on affordability, we're already seeing it in Georgetown. When unemployment's below 3%, this is workforce housing. And these are folks that are working really hard to put groceries on the table for their family, and they're going to be working in retail and restaurants and in the trades and stuff. And we want them in Georgetown. I want them in Georgetown. I want them to be a part of the fabric of our community, okay?
Right.
And so we have to have affordability is a challenge in Central Texas, not only Austin, but in Georgetown and Round Rock and Pflugerville and San Marcos.
Just real quick from both of you, and I want to go to the audience. I know, Steve, in Paris I learned and have been doing a lot of reading about you that you're a data mayor. You believe in data, and I know, Mayor, you just listening to you spin off prices and costs. You're a data mayor.
CPA thing.
But data mayors, I mean, it's not very well understood, I think, in this area of sustainability. What are the data points that matter? What do you need feeding into you to make smart decisions in correcting the course of a city? And so I'm just interested in sort of what are the data points that you know, you take into the bathtub and you're reading to get right. And that's how Alan Greenspan used to run the economy, sitting in the...
Right.
Yeah.
So on the dashboard that we have, you have just the general economic, factors. You have the cost of what you're doing. You have the budget relationships to spending versus the budgets that you have. We track things like reliability with respect to the system that we have. The normal kinds of data points that you would have running any kind of business. With respect to the sustainability and the renewability, sometimes you're entering into areas that do cost more. You're running into sometimes culture changes with people as you roll out a composting program, first residentially and then commercially. So part of what you're doing is education with a community. And you're constantly listening so that you can respond to the feedback that you're getting as you do those things.
Yeah, the one thing I look at is we have the lowest effective tax rate in Central Texas. Okay, so these aren't an A or B choice. You can have C, all of the above.
Right.
I mean, a good Republican thing, low taxes, right? We're in green energy, good thing, right? Low tax, we're the second safest city in the state of Texas. But all this can happen if you have the political will and you have the visionary leaders in charge of making it happen. And in Central Texas, we're very, very blessed with those kind of leaders.
Interesting. Thank you both. Let me take questions, comments from the audience. I'll call on you. You have a question? No? Nobody wants to ask the mayor of Austin a question. I'm going to go right up here in front. Go right. Okay, great. Don't you in class with the teacher said, okay, I'm going to call on you?
You're holding it? Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for doing this to the Atlantic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I guess just a general question related to not just the production, but the consumption of energy is Austin's lack of a light rail system, public transportation that really fits within this framework. Mayor, what do you see on the horizon for our light rail prospects?
Well, the first thing I would say is consumption obviously is a huge issue, which was your segue into that question. And one of the chief things that we've done with respect to sustainability in our city is to be reducing the per capita demand that we have. And a lot of the work that we do in terms of looking at generation is in demand reduction that we have in the city. Light rail was a project that came close to being passed in Austin 15 years ago, lost by a few hundred votes. And in retrospect, the city probably should have come back the following year with a similar proposal to get it done. We have 1 million people in the city. There are 2 million people in the county. Right. And we're projected to have 4 million people here by 2040. And it's hard to think how we're going to move that many people around in a city without some kind of rail or other system that moves masses of people. You know, but technology is changing as well. We have a strategic mobility plan that's going to be taking a look at those options and different modalities, and that comes out next year. So the answer to the question of how does that look in Austin, and what are the pathway for us to be able to get to the mobility choices we need, is something that, given the fact that we just lost that election 2 years ago, we're going through right now and should be revisiting again next year.
Just real quickly, I guess, no other questions we have here? We're right at the end. I'm interested that you just mentioned your bus system in Georgetown, and I don't know the cost factors of light rail versus bus. I assume that buses are cheaper. Are they? Why would you choose one and not the other in Georgetown?
Well, in Georgetown right now, we're only a city of 65,000. Typically, you have to have a city of at least 100,000 to make the bus system worthwhile. Critics say that it doesn't pay for itself, nor do non-toll roads. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think governments have the obligation to be able to transport their citizens around.
Right.
Light rail, I mean, Mayor Adler and I sit on Campo together, and you know, we have reserved the Mocan corridor for some kind of transportation corridor, and that decision has not been made. But I mean, if you look out 200 years, I don't think you can double or quadruple stack 35 and get people up and down 35. I think it's going to take some other kind of transportation system.
Finally, any movies coming out that we can see you
Absolutely,
in?
we do.
Yeah.
December 8th, home box office. Jamie Redford, the son of Robert Redford, has a movie coming out, and Georgetown, and your favorite mayor, is in that. December 8th.
December 8th, HBO.
Called Happening.
HBO. Called Happening?
Happening, a green energy revolution.
Mayor Adler, how about you?
I'm a fan.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Steve Adler, Mayor of Austin, Dale Ross, Mayor of Georgetown. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. It's always good to be on stage with you.